Hello, everybody. Can you all hear me? My name is Arlene Wang, and welcome to Let's Talk Art. I am a curator here at the Beach Museum of Art, and during the program, I will briefly describe what is on screen whenever possible, and this is for the benefit of those who are mainly listening to this program and not using video. So, to begin, I am a woman of Chinese descent. I have straight, medium-length, dark brown hair. This program features Doug Barrett. He is an African-American male artist based here in Manhattan, Kansas. Doug has curly black hair. I'll begin this program by acknowledging that the museum and Kansas State University stand on the homeland of Native peoples. This land was taken from them by violence and broken promises. Let us honor those peoples and stand witness to their losses. So this program will start with a conversation between Doug and me for about 10 minutes. After that, Doug will answer questions from the audience moderated by me for another 10 minutes. If you have a question, please post it in the Q&A section of this program. You'll see that Q&A icon on the bottom of the Zoom screen or at the top of the screen if you are on a portable touch screen like an iPad. Closed captioning is available. Click on the CC icon to activate it, and that should be again at the bottom of your screen or at the top. This program is being recorded, and a transcript will be available when the recording is posted on the museum's YouTube channel. Now, if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please do so. Please check out our channel. We have great material for you, other interviews with artists and curators. We need 100 subscribers so we can get a custom, easy to remember URL. So please help us. Okay, on to the main event. Recently, Doug Barrett's photography documenting Black Lives Matter protests in Kansas have been featured in Time magazine, in print and online. And also some of his photographs from protests here in Kansas got featured in the big screen in Times Square, New York. BBC News ran an interview with Doug over the summer about his participation in the Black Lives Matter movement. Doug is the founder and owner of 400 North Creative, a full-service photography and video agency here in Manhattan. In this conversation, we'll learn more about Doug's passion projects, which he has been working on for several years. Among those are the Homeless Veteran Project and his Yuma Street series. And we'll end the program with, looking at some examples of his photography from the Black Lives Matter protests. Prints from all these series that I've mentioned have been acquired by the Beach Museum of Art recently, and we're very excited to have Doug in our collection. So I'll start by describing briefly the first slide that Doug has up. It's a photograph of a memorial to Representative John Lewis, who passed away recently. And it has a quote by him. It says, "I appeal to all of you to get into this great revolution that is sweeping this nation. Get in and stay in the streets of every city, every village and hamlet of this nation, until true freedom comes, until the revolution of 1776 is complete." John Lewis. So Doug, I'll start out with my first question. Can you tell us how you got interested in photography and video?
It goes back to about 10 years old Christmas.
Doug, I think you're muted.
Oh, man. No, can you?
I hear him.
Can you
hear me?
do a test?
Yes.
He's not muted. Eileen, you must have your
I can
volume
hear you
down.
now. Sorry, my mistake.
Okay. I was going to say, it goes back to about 10 years old Christmas. My mom and dad got me my first Vivitar film 35mm camera. And every Christmas, my father would make my little sister and I sit at the top of the steps for Christmas, and he would get his video cameras and all his camera equipment ready before we came downstairs to open up our presents. So from about that moment up until even going to college, when my mom got me my, I think, second digital camera, a camera's been very close to me ever since then. Not professionally, but as a hobby, or anyone that knows me knows that I'm always taking pictures everywhere I go. So it goes back to my younger years.
Maybe you could start now by telling us a bit about your Homeless Veteran Project.
Sure. So in 2018, just before I left the corporate world, I was in Chicago on a business meeting. And after that meeting was over, I was in downtown Chicago crossing the street, and I was at a crosswalk, and the first picture should be of Leo. He asked me, he said, "Young man, do you mind if I have some change?" And in that moment, I wasn't prepared, but something tugged at my heart. And I asked him a question, and I said, "If you share a little bit of how you ended up here, I'll see what I can do to help you out." In that moment, it was a humbling experience, because Leo told me that he had been a former Marine, was a firefighter after he got out of the military, and fell through the roof of a burning building. And those unfortunate circumstances, reaching out to the VA and the Chicago Union, wasn't able to get support. A few months later, his mother, or his wife, Betty, passed away. And it floored me. So I asked him if I could take his picture while he was sitting right there. Fast forward, the light changed. I crossed the street, and I said, "You know what? This was an amazing story. Let me see what I can do to capture some more." So over the next couple of days, I was able to find 3 more veterans. On my way back home to Kansas, I said, "You know what? I think that would be really cool if I could find at least 3 homeless veterans in each state to share their stories," because I wasn't prepared for what I heard, and I thought it was very moving. So that's kind of what started it in 2018.
And I also want to ask, why are you particularly passionate about veterans?
I am a veteran myself, and I think I've completed 17 total states and met with 75 total veterans. So I haven't been able to travel this year due to COVID, but as soon as the ban or it's a little bit safer, I'll continue where I left off.
And what is your goal? Is it to have photographs of veterans from every state?
Yes, that is the goal. Hit all 50 states, and at least a minimum of 3 homeless veterans in each state. I believe some states like Portland, New York, Denver, and a few others. I think I've hit at least 12 to 14 in those states. So yeah, that's the goal. All 50
yeah.
states.
I remember over the summer, our local Asian market actually did a fundraiser where if we shared your post, that they would donate $5 for everyone.
Yes, I love the Asian market. Thank you.
Yeah, well, best of luck to that. Now, can you take the opportunity right now to tell us a little bit more about your background? What were you doing before 2018 when you started the series?
I was working as a remote project manager in the cybersecurity space. So being a remote employee, as long as I had my internet jetpack with me and my laptop, I was able to travel and move freely without limitations, like most 9-to-5s would provide. So I would find local or I would find tickets at affordable prices and travel to states based upon finding cheap airfare. Yeah.
Doug, did I hear correctly that you also used to be a police officer?
That is correct. Yes. In Gwinnett County, Georgia.
How long were you a police officer for?
4 years. Up until the point I decided that career growth, I deemed myself as wanting to go into the federal agencies. And at the time I didn't have military experience. And this was at the time George Bush was in office, and he was promoting veterans getting into federal service. And I knew that I needed to have military experience to get into the doors of the feds. Came out here, making Fort Riley the last stop. Um, that was the end of my military career, and picked the camera back up. Well, I had the camera in my hand while I was in the military, but this was the last stop for me.
So do you want to show us some more of your homeless veteran project?
Yes, you can go to the next slide. This was Jeremy. This was downtown New York. One of the things he spoke to me about was he said, I sit on this corner and thousands of people pass me every day. And the one thing that I liked about this photograph was, as you see Starbucks right across the street, not one person paying him attention. And he said, you were the first person to speak to me. And he said that, you know, after he got out of the military, he said that, you know, I thought about being a police officer, but he realized that career wasn't for me. And after about a 10-minute conversation, he asked if we could end the conversation so that he could finish doing what he needed to do to earn what pocket change he could earn. So this was downtown New York during Christmas time in 2018. So next slide. This was Samuel. This is probably my favorite story. Downtown Atlanta, not too far from the 1996 Olympic Stadium. He's 62 years old at the time, and I asked if I could sit down and speak, and as you can see at the bottom, he's sitting on a cardboard box. He told me that he recently was kicked out of a homeless shelter, and I said, homeless shelter? Kicked out? How? I said, you're about the age of my father, and he said, for fighting. And I said, well, what were you fighting for? He said, for the past 3 months, 3 local thugs had been jumping him and taking his money on the first of the month. And he said on that 3rd month, he decided to defend himself, at which point the homeless shelter administration decided to kick him out of the shelter. The kicker is that the VA will not send him his first of the month checks because he does not have an address to receive his checks. So he has to go around and put his name on homeless shelters lists so that he can get his backdated paychecks. And he was from California, but he ended up in Georgia. And I just happened to come across him at that time. So this was that moment right there where he was sharing with me his story. And once again, I said, man, people need to hear these stories because it's not what they believe is true. So yeah, you can have service, but still end up on hard times. So that was Samuel. Next slide. This was Timothy. On this sign reads, not my proudest moment, never thought this would happen to me. God bless. And this again was in New York in 2018 at a major intersection not too far from Macy's. Once again, a veteran who has service fell upon hard times, you know, not a drug dealer, not a drug user, not an alcoholic, but someone who, you know, lost their job, was not able to find their way under those unfortunate circumstances, and now has to humble themselves to beg for other person's pocket change. Next slide. This was, I'm sorry, I'm reading notes. This was Scott. He was a medic in the U.S. Army, I believe. Yeah, U.S. Army. And this is inside of a Starbucks, and we met outside, and he saw my camera and asked, he says, are you a photographer? Told him what I was working on, and in this moment, he was playing his guitar, and this was kind of his debrief. But one of the things that was most interesting, and this was pre-COVID, was every night he would go to the back of hospitals and get medical supplies that were being thrown away to help others living on the streets with their medical conditions, all the while living with a hernia that he was trying to seek the VA's help with getting a surgery for. So I thought it was very powerful that in this moment, you know, here he is playing the guitar, telling me that he gets medical supplies to help others on the street. And again, this was pre-COVID, but you know, what a selfless act to do to help others by doing what he can by providing medical equipment to them or medical supplies.
And I'll just say that, you know, here in this photograph, he's sitting inside what looks like a cafe on a bar stool with his guitar.
Yeah, Starbucks. Those were
A Starbucks.
Starbucks.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, next slide. This photograph was made in Atlanta, Georgia, at Congressman Lewis's while he laid in state at the Capitol, and I call this one "Black Woman." Malcolm X as one of the most unprotected individuals in the world, and I thought it was symbolic with people on the left. She's walking down the center of the street, and the state police were over to her left, right side of the image. And I just felt that it was a very iconic picture to make in the current times that we're in.
Yeah, this is really powerful. Shall we move on to your Yuma Street series before you run out of time?
Yes. Next slide.
We'll maybe skip this for now.
Yep, another image that was made at Congressman Lewis's funeral. Next slide. This was a part of Yuma Street. This was Prayer Manhattan Mlk. They came out, local pastors and members of the local churches, the Well in Manhattan, along with Manhattan Christian Fellowship, came out to pray on Manhattan for all of the turbulent things that are going on in our time. And in this moment, I was able to make a photograph of the bishop as he was waving to other participants. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, now we're at the Yuma Street. This is probably one of my favorites. This name is Lazone Grace Sr. He is a 101-year-old Korean War veteran. A little bit about Yuma Street, not being from Kansas. I was working with a marketing company here in town, SEG Media, and I made some similar statements, not being a local, to the Yuma Street area. And the owner of the company said, Doug, you should do your history and fact checking on Yuma Street. And 2 years ago, around the time I started the Homeless Veteran Project, I decided to go out with my camera and start making stories and photographs of the area. And this led me to Lazone Grace, and he shared his story with me. His son lives out in Topeka. His daughter lives in Texas, all military veterans, but lives right here on Yuma Street. And as I stated in some of my writings, the wording is don't go south of Points, or it's the ghetto, or it's the drug area. And I have not run across in 2 years anyone who is that fits that description, other than lower income individuals, and a lot of the areas being developed for younger individuals to come into that side of town. But it's South Manhattan, and his story is phenomenal. And I wanted to do him justice by making this photograph and sharing his story. So,
can you describe more what this neighborhood is like? What's the character of the neighborhood?
I would say it is predominantly minorities. There are Hispanics that live out there, African Americans. There are some Caucasians that live out there that I've interacted with, but predominantly this area is predominantly African American. The history goes back to Jackie Robinson, Joe Louis living out on Yuma Street back in their time of service at Fort Riley, and many of the African Americans could not live on post as soldiers, or athletes could not live on campus during the times of segregation. So most of them lived on Yuma Street, and they were all known that they cannot cross over Points after 6 p.m. So many of them lived in that area. So as more African Americans, minorities moved to the south side of town, it just became prevalent that this is where most of the minorities live. But the negative connotation was that it was the ghetto. And I actually did some statistics, and most of the drugs or the bad area comes from Colorado Street, where in most recent times there's been some drug arrests. But Yuma Street, since I've been on for 2 years, I haven't encountered any of that. So next slide.
And I'll just explain to people in the audience who are not in Manhattan that Points is the main avenue that is north of Yuma Street. Mm-hmm. So maybe say a few sentences about this, and then we'll move on to some of your protest images.
Sure. This is Miss Arlene Cole. She is the second oldest person living on Yuma Street. So Lazone Grays is 101 years old. Miss Cole is 94 years old. She grew up in Ellsworth, Kansas, and her husband was military, which brought her to Manhattan, and she's been here ever since. So it took me about 6 months to finally get the opportunity to speak with her. But once I was given that opportunity by her son and herself, I was able to make a photograph of her, and she's got some amazing stories. So next slide. Next slide. This is a Yuma Street story. We can fast forward. Next slide. This is another Yuma Street. More Yuma Street.
We should wrap up in about a minute or two.
Okay, next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, this is Triangle Park, Manhattan, as the locals call it, the Aggieville area. 18 years old, gunned down by a white police officer in Ferguson, Missouri on August 2014. This was a young man out there, you know, voicing his concerns. One of the most powerful things that I've come across in all of the peaceful protests that I've been at was that Manhattan, Kansas, the Little Apple came together. 2,000 plus people marched down Bluemont Street in solidarity, you know, with a common cause to let their voices be heard. Next slide. Here's an image made during this time period on top of Bluemont. One of my friends allowed me to get access to the roof to be able to capture this iconic moment. Next slide. This was Junction City. This was one of the images that ran in time. A lot of the individual leaders in Junction City came together as a peaceful protest starting right here on the corner of downtown Junction City. They marched around the park and let their voices be heard as well. Just another peaceful protest. Next slide.
Junction City is the next town to Manhattan. It's close to Manhattan. And it's also where the military base is. Right?
Correct. Correct. Yes, ma'am. Next slide.
That's the end.
Oh, okay.
All right. So let's move on to our Q&A with our audience. We have a few questions here. So first question is, are you a native Kansan? What drew you to Manhattan? From Mary Lynn Manning.
The military, Fort Riley, and no, I am not a native Kansan.
And next question from Luke Dempsey. How did you go about meeting veterans in each state?
I get that question a lot. How do I meet veterans? I typically go towards the downtown areas or require somewhat of legwork to find areas that have homeless populations or areas that are typically where the homeless reside, but a lot of miles put on feet, walking around, or using Uber to get to those places.
And how many images do you make in a single shoot? And how do you know when you found the photo from Tim Shrug?
Tim Shrug. So if I am on a homeless veteran project and I am seeking photos, it depends. I typically like to get some type of portrait or some type of intimate moment to show the area or the space that person lives or calls their home for that particular time. If I'm on Yuma Street, I typically try and, for most of the Yuma Street project, all of this year has really been mostly porches or outside due to COVID. So I've tried to respect, you know, the 6 foot distance space and make photos the best I can. So I don't really have a set number, but, you know, as a photographer, you know when you've captured that moment to be able to tell that story. Thanks, Tim.
So there are a couple of questions here that are similar from Carrie Keller and Dolly Gooder. And the question is, do you envision your photos in black and white or choose that upon producing them? Or is there other reasoning about color and black and white?
Yeah. So growing up on film, you know, most of the photos were black and white for me. The homeless veteran project I wanted to do in all black and white is to not show color, to keep it very uniform. And I think that it gives the element of class and dignity to the individuals, because again, these people are at their lowest. And that same feel kind of for me went into the Yuma Street series, that I wanted to keep that same consistency. So um, I'm a lover of black and white. So
What do you like about black and white photography in particular?
I love I know this may sound cliche, but I love the blacks, and I love the deep grays that come from the shadows. Um, and again, I've got colleagues, Luke and Nick. We sit around and we talk photos all day. And, you know, for me, I see photos in black and white, even though most of them are made in color, but I see that image being made in black and white. So just the way my eye sees things, but there's no rhyme or reason to it. And there's no right or wrong to it. But yeah, that's just the way I see.
Yes. I just want to say that one of our participants, Amy Hemphill, said, thanks for your service.
Oh,
And
you're welcome.
I have a question from Kelly Yarbrough. She said, in your travels across the country, do you feel like you are representing Kansas? Do people ask you about Kansas?
I think to paraphrase that, I try to represent myself and my family, and then next, obviously, my town, because I'm a representation of my family along with my community, and coming back here to Kansas. You know, this is now home for me. So yes, I like to represent myself, my family, and my community. So hopefully, I'm doing a good job.
I think so. And Elizabeth Seaton, who is one of our curators here, is asking, how do you think photographers are contributing to the Black Lives Matter movement? What are your aims in terms of your involvement with the movement?
Two parts. I think photographers are contributing because, uh, again, Luke and Nick, we talk all the time, you know, and in this photo space, a lot of us have determined that either you're going to put your camera down and not document, or you're going to pick your camera up and document. Some of the most iconic images during 9/11, which is tomorrow, came, and we will have those forever memories because photographers decided to pick up their camera. So I think that's key. And then the second part of the question was, can you repeat that?
Hold on. What are your aims in terms of your involvement with the movement?
With the movement, is to set our narrative. Mainstream media is depicting, you know, looting and rioting, and you know, those are things that are happening. But in Manhattan, Kansas, and Junction City, Kansas, I was able to attend 5 protests, and not one was any looting or rioting was involved. It was people who came together in this community of the Little Apple in Junction City, who wanted to let their voices be heard. So I tried to capture that in the most appealing ways possible.
Mm-hmm. And this the last question I'm going to ask you, and then I'll just mention some comments. So the last question we'll touch upon, which photographers have inspired you by Jessica Maxwell?
Of course, Gordon Parks, Early Hudnall Jr., Joel Meyerowitz, Carrie Mae Weems, Deborah Willis. I don't know if I said Jamal Shabazz. I actually have a list that I keep on my phone to do research. Yeah, Anthony Barboza, Corrine Simpson, John Shearer, Theodore Gaffney, Monita Sleet Jr., Stanley Green are some of the key African-American photographers. And then we can go into some of the older Robert Franks, Gary Winogrand, Mary Ellen Mark, Cartier Bresson, Diane Arbus, Alex Webb. Albert Watson, Chris Hondros, Tim Harrington, Platon. So those are some of the ones that I like. They catch my eye. So
So is it sometimes like, you kind of look through their photographs as inspiration or just to get your thinking flowing?
yeah, I mean it's studying. It's studying works of arts. I mean, some of the names that I mentioned, we're talking portrait photographers, we're talking street photographers, we're talking photographers that have just taken photographs of everything. And studying those works of arts allows you as an individual photographer to develop an eye for what suits you. And again, you just like anything, in order to 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 produce great images or to elevate your career, you should study, you should do research. So as photographers, most of the ones I know have books that they research writings or photos on.
Definitely. And Linda Duke is asking, she said, you mentioned a homeless veteran's hernia. Did you find that many homeless veterans have service-related injuries, physical or psychological?
Absolutely. Just about everyone that I came across had some type of injury. One of the images that you guys acquired from Tampa last November, the individual was a former sniper in the military and had 2 wounds in his leg from combat in Afghanistan, and was actually trying to get a surgery that he needed to get, and again on a waiting list. So yes, Miss Duke. Tons of injuries, tons of PTSD from life and the military service.
And there is a question from someone, Dolly Gudder, who's asking if you could please provide a link for an organization that is helping veterans. So maybe you can type that into the chat box if you know of an organization that helps veterans. Thank you to all of you who are thinking about helping. And an anonymous attendee said, it's not a question, but just to comment that it must be challenging to hold emotions when you photograph such powerful images, such as Black Lives Matter and homelessness.
Yeah, I think that's very true. I think that's kind of where the military and law enforcement background kicks in, because, in those times of uncertainty, of you don't know what's going to happen, you don't know what may break out, you have to be able to compartmentalize and be situationally aware, and you kind of have to put your emotions from a safety perspective as a photographer off to the side, because as you're focusing, on the image which you're trying to capture, you lose sight of awareness. So I guess the training kicks in. So
now there are a lot of really wonderful comments, which we will be able to share with you, Doug, when we have the transcript. So everybody, don't worry, we will get your comments to Doug, even if I don't mention it here. And I believe that I'm already getting the warning that we should conclude the formal presentation of this program. So that's what I'll do, is conclude the formal presentation and say my thanks to John Murray and Jen Harlan, who have worked very hard behind the scenes to make this event go smoothly. And thank you to our audience for being here and for having a conversation with us. We love your input. And before you go, we would like some feedback, please. So please type in your comments in the chat box. As I said before, we will get them when we see the transcript of the event. And please mark your calendars for the next Let's Talk Art program. And I will be speaking with Renee Stout, African-American artist based in Washington, D.C. That is on Thursday, October 15 at 5:30 p.m. And info is on the museum's website and Facebook page, and also on Instagram and Twitter. Thanks for joining our conversation with Doug Barrett. Now, we conclude the formal presentation of the program right now, so feel free to leave the webinar. But if you wish, you can stick around to speak with Doug and me. We will be here for another 5 minutes or so. Goodbye, everybody. And I believe we can unmute John for those who want to stay around and chat with us.
Yes, if someone would raise their hand, we can unmute them.
Oh, yes. So please raise your hand if you would like to talk. Although in my screen, I don't see the raise hand icon. I'm not sure what it's like for everybody else.
Amy is unmuted.
Hello?
Yep.
Hi, my name is Amy Hemphill. I grew up in Manhattan, Kansas. I live in Indianapolis now. I just wanted to share with you that my mom, who lives in Manhattan, and my sister, who lives in Atlanta, we all attended the event together tonight since it was on Zoom. So that was fun. I had a question for Doug. Even though I grew up in Manhattan, I was aware that minority population lives on Yuma to some extent, but I was not aware at all of the history combined with Fort Riley and Jackie Robinson and all of those pieces. So I guess it's a two-part question. Number one is, are you planning to publish your work on Yuma? Because I would love to read and see that work. And the second question is, can you recommend links about sources for more information about the history of that area?
Yes, thank you for your question. So all of my work is published on social media and on my website. Social media is at 400northcreative.com, Instagram or Facebook. My website as well, www.400northcreative.com. As far as the history, other than what I'm documenting, I know the Douglas Center, Mr. Baker, is a plethora of information. I don't think there's any formal history other than the locals that are of age that have been able to share, and I've been able to compile notes. Maybe later on down the road, I'll put together a book and have this information, but there is no formal sources of information other than what is gathered by word of mouth. And that was the challenge, was to document and gather this rich history. So over the next couple of months, I'll continue putting out works from Yuma Street, and I try and mix it up every now and then, other than when I'm not following other assignments that I'm on. But yeah, I keep putting it out there.
And I'll just add that, Doug is not only a visual artist, but he's also literary, and his photographs are always very often accompanied by beautifully written words.
Thank you.
Anybody, please chime in if you have a question or want to talk to Doug.
Elizabeth Seaton is unmuted.
Hi, Doug.
Hi, Ms. Seaton, how are you?
I am just fascinated by the fact that you worked as a police officer, and just really interested to know what your insights are coming from that perspective on the protests and the sort of weekly events that occur that are somewhat outrageous on the part of police against Americans, Black Americans. So just interested in your thoughts about that.
It's we are in some turbulent times here right now. I actually just talked to a former officer that I used to work with for a shooting that happened today, and it is very surreal. Many people of color are raised, and this is just reality. There's no secrets behind it, but I can remember when I first got my driver's license, my father telling me, be a defensive driver, always be careful. But most importantly, if you're pulled over, these are the things you have to do to survive a traffic stop because your skin is brown. And those same sentiments have lived with me. They've lived with every male, every female of color. And it's just a part of who we are. So fast forward into wearing the uniform, you do what's right. You treat people with respect. I remember the day I was hired, my chief of police says, the most important tool that you have is not your firearm, it is the pen. And he went on to say that you can change lives with the pen, the stroke of the pen. But he said, the biggest thing that I need you to have in your early police career is compassion. And I think that has been lost. I think I could talk on this topic all day long, but men and women who wear uniform, there are good, there are bad, but at the same time, it's their profession. my skin color is not my profession. And I think individuals out there are trying to say that organizations such as Black Lives Matter is wrong and has stigmas behind them. But the notion is that persons of color with brown skin matter. Our lives matter. And we as human beings, we want to live. We don't want to die in the streets. If you're a criminal and you've had unfortunate circumstance that happened in your life, let that individual have their day in court. You know, let the justice system do the best it can to figure out that situation. But since early COVID, you know, we've had four deaths of African Americans, and you know, yes, individuals may have had criminal histories or had bad situations happen to them that put them in those situations, and those were their choices. But dying in the streets for the world to see is we've got to get to a better place. So it's tough. I understand law enforcement, but at the same time, I had an incident happen to me right here in the Little Apple, and I only shared that incident because most people thought that that didn't happen in Kansas. So yes, it happens everywhere. So we just want to live. That's my slogan. We want to live. So.
Anybody else want to chime in with a question?
Mary Lynn Manning is up.
Hello, Mary.
We don't hear you, Mary.
Sorry, Doug, greeting from Florida. I want to thank you for your oral history on Yuma Street, and I want to encourage you to find the way to tell that story in a greater way for the rest of us to hear. For those of us who spent time in Manhattan and still come back to Manhattan, it's a great story. And my fear is that it's a story that if you hadn't picked it up before these people reach a certain point where we wouldn't be able to hear their stories, it'll be lost. And it'll be a lost history because it is a part of Manhattan. So I really encourage you on the sidelines to try and pursue combining the words with the photos to tell the story that's there. It's a very powerful story.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm actually working with Miss Linda Duke, one of the, I think she's the director of the Beach Museum, on a committee in a local organization who is trying to bring some arts to the Yuma Street area. Hopefully I'm not going to get in trouble for saying this, but over the next year, we would like to, or the team would like to incorporate murals of some of the historic things. So as a photographer, my goal is to take, again, Lazone Gray's senior, along with Miss Cole, and have their history documented and printed, with the Yuma Street history being that they are the two oldest living on Yuma Street. So yes, that is the goal, is to continue to document, continue to share, but I will take that feedback and do my best to put something together to get out there. So thank you.
Anyone else?
Ronetta Coates.
Yes. Hi, Doug.
Hello, Ms. Coates. How are you?
Wonderful. So as being a former police officer, have you thought about doing a project, maybe possibly trying to show the other side that the media is portraying? I mean, I do agree with, with the Black Lives Matter, but as being a police officer, and seeing what's going on in the media and actually being involved in some of the activities, but possibly having a different view for our perspective.
You're already in my thoughts. Ms. Coates and I used to work together in my jurisdiction. I was her backup. She was my backup. And we saw some rough times together, working nights together. So yes, I have a meeting set up with the director of police, or we've had a scheduled tentative meeting, but schedules keep conflicting, to speak on some of those issues and maybe to get some what's the word I'm looking for? Consent, permission to maybe follow and show what law enforcement actually goes through. You and I both know that we go through simulation trainings. There's programs like Community and Policing Together, Citizens Police Academy, where individuals have the opportunity to learn what happens in law enforcement. But the mainstream media does not show what it feels like to wear a 25-pound belt, sit behind a car 12 hours a day and take calls and make decisions, at split seconds. We can all sit back and watch Facebook or YouTube videos of what that officer did and how it was wrong. But until you've lived in that circumstance, you don't know. So yes, I most certainly will do that.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Coates. That's a great idea. And I think that would be a unique, two-part story to tell, to tell both sides. And you, Doug, are especially positioned well that way because you understand both sides.
Yes, I appreciate it. And keep up the good work, Doug.
Thank you.
Next, anybody else? I see we have quite a few people still hanging around.
Pat Hudgens.
Pat Hudgens, thank you so much, John. How are you doing? Thank you for giving me the opportunity to unmute. I kept trying to think, okay, I can't see anybody, so thank you for your patience. Thank you, Doug, for sharing so much. This was powerful. I appreciate your work and I appreciate what you have done. My husband and I were sitting here at the computer looking at everything and we could have gone on for hours. One of the things that I wanted to mention is Jerry Walton, who was a librarian here. She wrote 140 Years of Soul, which is an African-American history of Manhattan. And it was from 1865 to 2005 is when she did that book before she passed away. And so that has a lot of history, talks a lot about Yuma Street and what took place up until that time. I think she was working on some other things that may be at our historical society, the Manhattan Historical Society. And so I do know that there was a piece in the Manhattan Mlk on Sunday about that, a little bit about that, but that's a book that captures quite a bit. And I do know Ms. Cole, what a sweetheart. And Ms. Rosa Hickman, who would be about 100 now, she moved away. She was on Yuma Street as well, just about a block from the Douglas Community Center. And as she got a little bit older, her family had to move her to Chicago, Illinois area. So she's in Aurora, Illinois, and I keep in touch with her. She is in an assisted living place, but it's quite sharp and would probably love to talk about some things with you, a little bit more of history, because she's just on top of life. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing your pictures. Thank you for sharing your veteran story. My heart goes out to them.
Can you tell us the title of the book on the history of Manhattan again?
Yes,
It is 140 Years of Soul,
140 years.
of Soul, a history of African Americans in Manhattan.
Okay,
Kansas,
thank you.
1865 through 2005.
Yeah, I was writing that down. I forgot there's going to be a transcript, so I'll make sure I get that. And I would most certainly, I heard the name from Mr. Baker, and he did tell me that she had moved away. So kind of what I did from a strategy perspective at the beginning of COVID was I took a Google Earth image and kind of kept it in my vehicle, because each day I would try and go out at least an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening. And I would kind of start circling homes of individuals that I would see living out there. And Mr. Baker did tell me that she had moved away. So I would travel to go meet her and hear her story from what she has on Yuma. So when the transcript is finished with this, I'll make sure I go get that and add that to my my notes. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for that tip.
Paige Eichhorn.
Hi, I'm a student journalist for the K-State Collegian, and I was just hoping to ask Doug what advice he has for young photographers who are capturing the Black Lives Matter movement and trying to get some perspective on COVID-19 as well, and just like entering the workforce right now.
Advice number one: stay safe. COVID is an illness. I'm not a scientist. I don't know if it's real or not, but my common sense tells me that it's very real. So as a photographer, keep your gear sanitized for those individuals that you're interacting with. Number one. Number two, you should have a camera with you at all times and continue to document. As a young photojournalist, do what you can to document every day, and be authentic, be genuine, be intimate with your photography. You'll understand this. Don't just necessarily stand back with your 70 to 200. Pick up your 35, get in close, get in tight, get names, and get stories. Because as a photographer, you know, there's more to an image than just the image. You know, add context to that. So that would be my best advice. If you need help with anything, feel free to shoot me an email on the contact page on my website, and I'd be glad to help you.
Okay, we have one last question that we can field, and then we have to wrap up.
Yep, and Lana Ellis, you need to unmute.
There, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I just want to say I appreciate Doug's work and his art and his words and everything. And I had met Mrs. Cole years ago. She used to come in an office where I worked, and she was so nice. And it was just good to see her picture.
Thank you. I appreciate
That's all.
it. Yeah, she's a sweetheart. She's a woman that had history in Georgia, and she was most recently, when I was talking to her last, she was telling me about some of the land that she had in Georgia that she ended up having to sell due to taxes. And again, I could sit and talk to her all day, but most of the time she was recovering from illness, so we had to limit it. But yeah, thank you for sharing.
Hey, Doug, what is your advice to a young student who has just started taking photography and learning to photograph?
Find the things that interest you. You know, there's landscape photographers, there's street photography, there's portrait photography. Find the things that interest you. You know, I've got friends like Emily, who's a sports photographer for K-State, Luke Townsend, who to me, I consider a great photographer who's done portrait, who's done streets. Then you've got photojournalists, photographers. You know, find the things that interest you. We don't all shoot the same things. We don't all gravitate towards the same types of photography. So find what it is that most interests you, whether that's long form stories or what have you, and continue down that path.
Yeah, and I'll say from the curator's perspective that when you are passionate about a subject, it shows in the photographs, and that's what's going to set you apart. Right, Doug?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
All right. I think that we need to end this program now. We're coming up to our time limit. So we can leave the meeting now. John, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for this wonderful dialogue.
Thank you, Eileen. Thank you.
Bye.
Too. Bye.